Dr. Gina Cleo, welcome to her Empire Builder show.
So good to be with you, Tina.
Yay. Okay, so I was saying before we hit record, like one of the reasons why I really wanted you on was I was talking about habits and I was talking about like high performance and different things. And four people mentioned you to me within the span of 1 month, of which is always such a sign that you're like getting great cut through and putting out really, really great stuff. So people are saying, I always wonder, like, what do people say about you when you're not around? People are saying wonderful things about you.
Oh, thank you. That means so much. And thank you to all those people, whoever you are.
Yeah,
It means a
right. It's
lot.
always nice to hear. Okay, so at the start of your career, you were focusing a lot on the diet world.
Mm.
How has that changed for you? And how did you kind of lock into this whole area of habits? Because reading about your early work and where you started, you could have gone in many different areas. How did you get into this, like, I'm going to focus on habits and devote good portion of your life to it?
Yeah, so I was a dietitian and yeah, I was helping people to do all sorts of things, whether it was gain weight, reduce weight, depending on their health. And I found that I could only help people short term. Like people would come back to my clinic and they'd be like, look, I did this for a couple of days or I did
Mm.
this for a week and then I fell off the wagon. And it was a consistent pattern. And I also reflected on my own life and noticed that I was also struggling with my own sense of lacking self control, lacking discipline. And I was like, why is it that I say I'm going to get up in the morning and do some exercise? And I end up scrolling on Facebook Marketplace for 2 hours. Or why do I say I'm going to start this diet and I don't? Like, what is going on? And so I started to do some research about the brain and motivation and what motivates us to do the things we do and how can I harness those good days? Like what's the ingredient in the good days
Yeah.
that I can like implement? And the more I researched, the more I found that habits are the only proven method to achieving our goals long term. It's the
Yeah.
only proven method. Nothing else works long term for any behavior change. And that was it. So I started my PhD in habits. So I actually did a bunch of like experiments because look, you can read something in science, but until you actually implement it yourself and see it for yourself, for
Yeah.
me anyway, that's what I needed to really solidify this theory.
So
So I
experiment wise, what was
yeah.
the hardest habit for you to either break or make that was important to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the hardest habits are generally mindset stuff, like
Mm.
changing. Because often we think of habits and we think of things like smoking or drinking or
Yeah.
exercising. But our habits aren't just our actions, they're also our belief systems, they're how we respond to things. So I think the hardest habits are the ones where I might have a belief about something. Like,
Mm.
say, I feel insecure about this thing and I'm trying to change my mindset around that. I think those are the hardest habits actually to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking as you're talking there going, yes, I do think that as well. Because in the pursuit of, long-term goals that we have, and for most of us, I mean, most people that are listening to this podcast now are highly ambitious, high achieving business women. And so all have long-term goals, but what I see so much is we have the long-term goals, but if those small habits don't change, we can never actually get there. What do you see as like the daily habits and how much of that contributes to the achievement of that long-term goal if it's for something that you've never done before and you've never been that person before?
Oh, I mean, Vincent van Gogh puts this great quote together, and it was great things are achieved by a series of small actions put together.
Mm,
And I'm such a big believer of that. It's about the little things. I think we very often overestimate the big, like grand
yeah.
behaviors or actions or decisions when really the magic happens in the little moments.
Yeah.
It's the decision to whatever it was, like pay one small amount towards one debt. It's
Mm,
calling one person that you've been avoiding. It's making one healthy choice in a meal or going to bed 10 minutes earlier. It's those little things compounded and done consistently that create the magic. And there's two sides to this because I feel like as high achievers, it can be really hard to appreciate that concept and actually do it. because we just want to achieve everything like yesterday.
Yeah, totally.
And telling someone to take baby steps sounds so tedious and like not a fun time at all.
Yeah.
Whereas on the other end, it's the only way we can achieve something sustainably. And we know that through lots of research and also trial and error.
Yeah.
So yeah, those
So
small
why
steps.
do you think we find it so hard to do the thing that we want to do so that we can be the person we want to be? Like it's been when you're talking at the beginning about the different diets and different things, like I've dieted every diet most of my life, and it is really, really difficult. And I'm someone with a hell of a lot of willpower and a hell of a lot of discipline. So why do we find it so hard?
Change is hard. Our brain doesn't like change. We're very comfortable in our familiar, even if that familiar isn't serving us. We make about 35,000 decisions every single day. And so our brain has to automate a lot of those decisions so that we don't go into burnout. So things that you do all the time, your brain's like, right, I'm going to automate those become habits. And then making a change, you're now disrupting the flow of that rhythm that you already have. And your brain's like, whoa, change means extra energy, extra thought, extra resources. Like I'm over here trying to make 35,000 decisions and now you're wanting to make all these changes. Like that's not cool. So change is hard, I think. And I think as well, we're given so many messages in society, like go hard or go home, or your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And rubbish things like that. I swear, next time I walk into a gym and I see something like that on like the blackboard they have there, I'm gonna break it or something.
Just get a big poster and write no.
Yeah, this is not true.
Yeah.
Here's my website for more details.
Yes.
But we're sort of told that unless we're giving something 100%, then we're not really that committed. And that's not sustainable. Our motivation, everybody's motivation is like a wave. It's up and down from day to day, from moment to moment. And if we're trying to achieve big things, we're having to have loads of motivation, and it's not sustainable to do it like that.
So what is the sustainable way to be able to do it?
Well, when you think of habits, of course, I'm going to bring that into it.
Yeah.
Habits don't need motivation or willpower or self-control. No matter how tired or stressed or busy you are, you will always put your seatbelt on in the car because it's something that you do habitually. And in the same way, if we can create a life that's filled with the effective habits, the positive habits for us, that is how we create sustainability and that longevity of behaviors.
So if someone's in there, I'm going to tell you something that I thought, you'll probably laugh or roll your eyes a little bit at me when I tell you this story, but I am very much into like experimenting with myself as well and trying to get the best out of life and different things. So I did this experiment about like, I don't know, 5 years ago now, that was my year of actual best self. And I thought, if I was going to be my actual best self, what is every habit that I would embody? And I wouldn't drink alcohol. I wouldn't drink caffeine. I wouldn't bite my nails when I was nervous. I would get out of bed at this time. I would work out for 20 minutes every morning. I had like 15 of these things. And I decided to start all of them at one time.
Of course, high achiever.
And go, okay, like, can I just reinvent my whole life and be my actual best self, of which lasted about 16 weeks, which I was actually quite impressed.
Solid.
Yeah. I was quite impressed. But everything that I'd read said, habits take 28 days or 30 days or something like that, which did not ring true for me. With different things like that and all the research that you have done, is it best, and do we get momentum from like stacking and going, okay, we've done one thing and gives us the confidence to do the next thing and one at a time? Or is it like white knuckle it through it and be who you want to be? Like, where did I go wrong there, and what can people learn from my failed experiment?
Oh my God, there's so much juicy things to talk about here. Firstly, 16 weeks is amazing. You should be so proud of yourself. I think the track record is something like 2 weeks with kind of a list that big of things to do. Well, firstly, our brain is only capable of making up to 3 changes at one time. Anything more than that starts to feel like a chore. It's quite overwhelming. And when life does life and throws something at us, those things start to fall away. The habits that we're trying to create fall away. The research shows that actually just trying to change one thing at a time is much more effective than trying to change multiple things. And then once that starts to feel more automatic, like a more natural part of your routine, then add another one and
Mm.
continue that pattern. You say, where did I go wrong? And I'm like, did you go wrong? Like you went 16 weeks. That's amazing.
Yeah, but it didn't stick. See,
It
now
didn't
I
stick.
go,
Yeah.
so my last plan was to go, okay, I'm going to do one every 12 weeks because I thought
Mhm.
that would be more achievable. So I stopped drinking alcohol in December of 2022. And then that was going to be 12 weeks and then stopped drinking caffeine. It
Yeah.
took me a year later to stop drinking caffeine. So I've maintained it. Now it's been what, 5 months, 6 months of no caffeine and a year and a half of no alcohol, except I have a beautiful cocktail when I go out to dinner with friends. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that took me way longer than I thought. But now I feel like because I staggered it, it's like it's just part of my day now. And I
Yeah.
can't ever imagine a couple of years ago not waking up and having a beautiful coffee. Like
Yeah.
it's so
How
yes.
cool is that? I mean, people say 21 days or 28 days. There's absolutely no research
Is
to back
there?
that up at all. No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but think about it, Tina. Like, if something took 3 or 4 weeks to achieve, I feel like we would all be perfect beings.
We
Like,
would be. Yeah. We
we
can
could
stick
achieve
anything for that
everything. Like,
time.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can commit to anything for that time. But actually, the harder the habit is that you're trying to change, and the more ingrained it is in your life, and there's a whole bunch of factors, but the basically it can take anywhere up to a year to change a habit. It can take 2 weeks for really easy habits. So some of the studies show things like teaching someone to wash their hands at a specific time will take like 2 weeks for them to automate that.
Yeah.
Whereas getting someone to go to the gym several times a week took about 7 months in this study, because the act of going to the gym, there's a lot more sequences in that than just
Yeah.
washing your hands. The same with having a glass of water with breakfast, took like 3 weeks to develop, compared to doing 50 push-ups, which took about a year, because that's a really complex thing to automate.
Yeah. Interesting.
So simple habits are going to develop much quicker than those more complex ones. Also, the other factor here is how badly you want it. The
Mm-hmm.
stronger our intention for change, the quicker that change will happen. Because
Mm.
things like, I want this. And so you become more consistent, you persevere through hard times, you're more focused on it, you're more mindful about it. So you've got to want it quite badly.
Yeah. And is that what keeps you sticking through when you go, like, is it true that we run out of, with all the decisions that we're making, decision fatigue at the end of the day, and we actually run out of willpower and discipline? Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's actually a concept in psychology called ego depletion. And ego depletion is essentially a term that we give for when our willpower or self-control runs out. And it
Yeah.
does run out. And the things that deplete it are making decisions,
Mm.
being hungry. So hangry is like totally a thing. Being stressed, like with time pressures, like if you've got time pressure or you're rushed, things like driving through traffic, uncomfortable conversations, feeling any sort of negative emotion, sleep deprivation. I mean,
So
taking
a lot of normal
initiative.
life is getting in the way of us
Normal
having great habits.
Literally. Like, think of like getting up, deciding what to wear in the morning, driving through traffic, getting the kids ready. Then you get to work to a pile of emails. You're pretty depleted already, and you
Mm.
haven't even had like your breakfast yet. So
Yeah.
yes, our willpower runs out during the day. The things that we can do to replenish it,
Mm-hmm.
things like rest, taking periodic breaks throughout the day, like 10 minutes in every hour, meditation, a really good night's sleep, having some carbohydrates. So, like, that is really helpful. And feeling positive emotions like gratitude and love and joy.
Mm-hmm.
Those things help to replenish our self control, which is why at the end of the day, we might find it harder to have self control than it is in the earlier parts of the day.
So is there any hacks that you have? If I use something simple, like the example you gave before of the doing the 50 push-ups, and
Mm.
you're like, I'm tired, I don't want to, and we're behaving like a petulant toddler, and no, but it is important, and we do want all of the things that come with it. What are
Mm.
the hacks you have to sticking the habit when you're like on the cusp of giving it up?
Yeah, I think make it really easy for yourself to just start.
Mm.
Whether that's like, if it's working out, for example, like have all your stuff out and ready and book into a gym class so that you can't just like drop out of it. Or if it's sending that one more email, like say to yourself, if I send this email, then I can watch TV for an hour, like
Yeah.
guilt-free. Like give yourself those instant rewards, I think is really helpful. Or stacking things with things that you enjoy. So
Mm.
I was working with someone recently who wanted to do some more exercise, and I was like, all right, when you're on the treadmill or bike or whatever it is, that's when you can watch like the most guilty pleasure show that you
Yeah.
have. And they're like, yes, I want to catch up on all these shows. And so they got to do that and did it much more willingly
Mm.
because they got to stack it with something else. It's called reward bundling, like
Yeah.
attaching something you want to do with a thing that you kind of don't really want to do.
I
The other thing
love
is
that.
remember why you started. Why is this important for you? Remind yourself change is hard, but the more you do it, the more habitual it'll be, and then the easier it'll be. So when you do it today, you're going to make it easier for yourself tomorrow and easier again the following day and the day after that. Like you said with your coffee,
Mm.
like you never thought you couldn't do it. And the first few days, I'm sure would have been a challenge,
Yeah.
but now it's much easier for you.
Yeah. Oh, especially with coffee was more like sudden and then it got really easy, whereas alcohol took me a longer time to
Yeah.
habitually get out of going, hard day, glass of wine, great day,
Mhm.
celebrate with a glass of wine, like all of the
Yeah.
different things, like the amount of time I didn't realize how many things I had associated with it.
Yeah.
So that was probably much harder in getting out of that habit of doing it. But is it like a no muscle that when you say no more often, it does get easier in doing that over time?
Yeah, it's more that the less you do something, the less habitual it becomes. And
Mm.
actually, then the less reward your brain gets from it. So before, when you'd have a glass of wine, like you feel good. And you not only are you getting a hit of dopamine, you're doing something that's normal for you. And remember, our brain really likes the familiarity of and the comfort of that normality.
Yeah.
The more you say no, the more no becomes a bit more of the normal. And
Mm.
then eventually no is your default.
Yeah.
It's more like the practice of it makes it permanent.
Yeah. Is there a habit that you talk to people about most often that you think this is one that I know would change the game for a lot of people, but so many people struggle with it?
The most reported unwanted habit is phone scrolling.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
the one
would
I
say
was
that the
thinking
habit,
too. Yeah.
most people say that, and every age group say that it's the
Mm.
thing that they struggle with the most. But I think the habit that would impact people the most is getting a better night's sleep.
Mm.
Sleep is everything. It is
Yes,
the
agree.
foundation of everything. And I think we're going to bed too late because we're scrolling and we're snoozing because we're tired from the night before.
Mm.
Because those are the other two most unwanted habits is uh, snoozing our alarm and going to bed too late.
Yeah. Sleep is like my superpower. I wear an Aura ring and I have an 8 sleep. Have you seen the 8 sleep?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's
I do
inve
have.
which has, like, changed my sleep game completely.
Ooh,
I just think
amazing.
I sacrifice everything for sleep. I had dinner with a bunch of girlfriends last weekend and I made the dinner at 6 PM and everyone was laughing at me going, "It's like a nana time." And I'm going, "That's because I need to be back and in bed by 9." Like, it's
Yes, I'm exactly the same. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I love this.
Yeah, when we ran our conference, like all of the dinners were early, so we finished the latest one was at 10 PM. So I'm going, I personally need to go to bed.
Yeah,
You can party on if
absolutely.
you want to, but nothing is worth like the lack of
Yeah.
sleep in my
Yeah.
mind.
When
Yeah.
people come over for dinner, they know they're getting kicked out by 8:30. Like I literally say to them, come for dinner, but you have to leave by 8:30 because I'm
Yeah.
done at that time. Yeah. It's actually the reason why I don't really drink a lot of alcohol now as well, is
Yeah.
because it impacts my sleep so much. So
Yeah.
although I'd really, really love to have a glass of wine
Yeah.
after a big day, the reason I don't is because it impacts my sleep. And I value sleep more than I value wine.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
was the
it's
same
not
with me.
huge.
My Aura ring was telling me all of the different I'm a data girl, so all of the
Yeah.
different stats, and then I was measuring how different things impacted, and I was going, "Oh yeah, this is not good."
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
totally. What besides sleep, do you have a daily habit that you think has totally changed everything for you that you've adopted since you've gone into habit research?
yes. It's like lots of little things
Yeah.
rather than like one big thing.
Are
And it's
you
not
like an
just that.
actual best self person with your habits?
Some days, yes. Some days,
She's
no.
like,
It
yeah,
depends on
yeah.
the time of month. Depends how busy I am, depends how motivated. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm killing it at life. Like, this is awesome. And other days I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna watch reruns of Farmer Wants a Wife and do
Yeah.
nothing. The more I learn about the brain, the more it's shaped my behavior and my day. And actually, I find the less it becomes this conventional 9 to 5 type of work day.
Mm,
And I'm accepting that more and more and actually really loving it. But
yeah.
I find that the days I do some exercise, I focus so much better and I'm just like a way happier me. So, say I'm doing a keynote presentation or I'm doing a webinar or even a podcast, I will make sure that I do some exercise in the morning so that I can bring my best self to those days. And I do, even if I'm not like presenting,
Yeah.
but on those days, I definitely particularly do it. I'm also much better now at taking rests, like breaks throughout the day. It's not natural for me. Like when
Mhm.
I was writing my book, I was just like, I wanted to sit and write for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
But then I find the next day I was a vegetable. I had
Mhm.
nothing. And the more I learned about the brain, again, the more I realized that actually those periodic breaks fuel creativity, they give us more energy. I'm going to be more productive, even though I don't
Mhm.
want to walk away from my computer. So I'm really good at doing those things now. And finishing work, like not just before bed, because that impacts my sleep. So
Yeah.
I have a cutoff point. I won't ever work after like 4:30 p.m. As
Mhm.
soon as I finish, I have a ritual of taking my dog to the dog park. So we're in nature and I'm walking, and that marks the end of my work day. And
Mhm.
after that, you won't be able to contact me.
Yeah, that's
Things like that, it's like
fantastic.
little nuance things that just make the flow of my day a lot more productive and
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. It's something I've started doing the every hour having the 10 to 15 minutes off, and I've
Yeah.
got my meditation station just over at the side, and I've put a
Love it.
treadmill in to just walk for like 10 minutes only. But I've
Yeah.
really battled with the difference between going the benefits of taking pause and I'm not as tired by the end of the day, but then you kind of balance that with the loss of focus and
Mhm.
going, I loss of flow when you're halfway through something and the alarm will go off and I'm like, what already? It just
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
And because
It's
my
true.
thing is like I could never look up. I could just keep going all day. And so I constantly battle with those two things and going, should I stay in flow? Should I take a break?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
I know what you mean. I definitely cheat through that where I don't break so much in the first half of the day, but then
Yeah.
like after lunch, then I'm
Mm,
much better at breaking because I find my focus times in the morning. Like don't break it. Seriously, I work from home and my when my husband comes in to say anything, like I'm going out to the shops or whatever, I'm like, I did not need to know that. Text me because I will check my phone when I want to. Don't disrupt my
yeah,
flow. I'm
exactly.
really
Yeah.
sacred about the flow. I don't know. I personally think if you're in flow, keep going
Mhm.
because it takes 20 minutes to get back into flow once you're disrupted out of it.
Yeah. What is the
Yeah.
habit that you have that is the one you want to break the most, like that you do, but you kind of grumble bum your way to it?
Mm. Ooh, this is a good one. I more have habits I want to do more rather. Oh yeah. Look, I'm not very good at like posting on my social media. And I know it sounds such a business issue, and it is, but
I'm sure a lot of people can relate.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could go forever and never check my socials. I don't enjoy scrolling. I don't like being on there. And
Mhm.
I'm so tentative to say that because I also want to engage with
Yeah.
my followers. And I really like when I'm engaging. I think just the act of it sometimes feels overwhelming
Yeah.
and feels like
And it's a very weird, unnatural thing to do as well.
it is.
Yeah.
I know. And it's also just weird talking about myself that much.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, why do people care about that? I don't know. I think that's something like I'm very hot and cold with it. I'll be
Yeah.
really good for like a week and I'll post every day and then I'll go MIA for 2 weeks. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, I really got to grind my way into getting back into it. I don't know.
Yes.
Is that kind of
Yeah,
habit
it
that
does. Yeah. Yeah. Because
yeah.
I'm always interested in like what people find easy and what people find hard because it's
Yeah.
so different for everybody.
Yeah.
My habit for the day, because Instagram stories are where so much of my conversations and engagement comes into it.
Yeah.
And so my habit was as soon as I walk into my office in the morning, before I do anything, 60 seconds is just an Instagram story of what I'm doing in the
Yeah.
day, and that's it. Then it's
Cool.
done. Then that's the day done.
Yeah. Love
That's
it.
you can use that one, Gina. Yeah.
I will use something like that. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
this.
It's
And
like I
also
needed that tweak. Otherwise, throughout
yeah.
the day, I go, "Oh, what have I got to say? I don't know if I've got anything." Like, da, da, da. It was
Yeah.
just like when I walk in, you just 60 seconds, hold the phone up, say my thing, and then I'm done. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It
Okay,
was
I'll do
good.
something like that.
Okay. Can you, because so much, and you mentioned this in the beginning, that so much of our habits is actually what's going on mentally behind the
Mm.
scenes and our thoughts and beliefs and those behavior patterns that we have. Is it possible to rewire your brain to overcome that conditioning and trauma from your past?
Absolutely. Our brains, we underestimate our brains so much. Our brains are designed to rewire, to
Mm.
reshape, to recreate themselves. Our brains are constantly creating new neural connections and they're getting rid of old, unused ones. And I can certainly, testify to the power of reshaping or reframing thoughts around trauma. I went through a really traumatic event a few years ago where I couldn't even leave my own house. Like I developed agoraphobia and I was terrified of everything. And
How did
everything,
that come up then? Was that COVID
so
related?
no, it was actually my ex-husband I discovered was cheating on me and he was going to brothels and hiring escorts. And the way I found out was, I was in the kitchen baking and I flicked his computer open to check a recipe and his phone was attached to his computer and he was out at the shops and this text message exchange came through between him and a prostitute that he was just about to meet
Oh,
with.
how horrifying.
It was awful. And, she was sending photos, and then I discovered hundreds more. And why it was particularly so traumatic is because this man I was with was, his nickname was the Saint. He was just the most beautiful, kind, gentle, vanilla human being. Like, never in my life. I was literally like, no, he would not be capable of even knowing where to go. But there's this entire world that is a whole other world in his life and I didn't know about it. So I was like, if I'm so wrong about him, what else am I so wrong about? So
Mm.
my mind like cracked. Is the sky even blue? Are these people who claim to be my parents even my parents? Should we even brush our teeth every day? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. And so this fear response took over me, and
Yeah.
everything that reminded me of him triggered my trauma. Like, oh my God, the smell of like massage oil, his ringtone, the smell of coffee, Sheridan sheets, because that's what we slept on, black cars, like just everything triggered me. So I couldn't leave my house. And I had to rewire my belief systems, my trauma triggers. I had to, otherwise I couldn't survive in the world. And gosh, it was a journey. But
Yeah.
now I'm remarried, not to the same guy. I'm like remarried, there's so much space for trust and vulnerability in my relationship that I didn't ever think that I could get to. And it's
Yeah.
only through rewiring those deep belief systems that I could achieve that.
So when you're in that part, when you're in, a pretty bad way, what did you start with to rebuild?
I started with Gina, I think today is probably a good idea that you brush your teeth. Just do that, and that's all you need to do. And I did just that. And then I was in bed for the rest of the day. And then the next day, I was like, okay, today, brush your teeth again and have a shower. And that's all you need to do today. And that's what I do. It was baby steps. With leaving my house, it was just take one step outside the front door and just sit with that discomfort for a minute and come
Mm.
back inside. And that's what I did. And it took me like a week to get out to my letterbox. But after that, I got curious about what was down the road and around the corner. And I was able to just really gradually experience the world again and find that I was safe and it was okay.
Yeah. And with you, like, obviously, both of us are surrounded by high achieving women a lot of our
Mm,
lives. And you were a very high achieving woman at that
mm.
stage already. Were you more patient with yourself because you knew the data in there, or were you hard on yourself because you were thinking, I shouldn't be in this position, or a lot of women that I talk to that get big life curveballs thrown at them and get into those situations. They're so hard on themselves. And so that can be really hard to overcome. Did you go
Yeah,
through that, or
I
you knew
did.
what was going on intellectually?
Well, both, I
Yeah.
think I oscillated between those two things. It's the ego in me that wants to achieve everything now,
Mm.
and the logic in me that's like, your brain is different. You need to stop. But also the circumstance of really not feeling like I had the capacity to do more than I was doing. I
Yeah.
remember the first time I went back to the gym, it was a couple of months later, and I was so much weaker. I was so deconditioned, and I was so down on myself about it. And then I was like, okay, I need self-compassion here. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to achieve anything. I couldn't focus. I couldn't even drive my car for a long time. I couldn't even go to the grocery store. And I had to celebrate all the little wins to keep myself going. But yes, it sucked. And I was like, why can't I be the person I was yesterday before? And I had to keep reminding myself, I didn't carry a trauma yesterday. And
Mm.
this was a different version of me, and I have to build my way up again.
Yeah.
So I oscillated. You know what? I still struggle. There are still times like, my husband now like drop his phone quickly if I walk through the room, and my mind is like,
Oh, yeah,
oh,
the
what's
trust
he looking
issues would be
at?
like,
Totally.
you've done
What's he
so
looking
well
at?
to go like a few years later, you're remarried. I'm like, that's some trust building you've done there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we worked super hard at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't come naturally. But my fear response is, what's he looking at? And I, I have to work through that. And look, most of the time he's looking at like stocks or something like that. But I'll say to him, the story that I'm telling myself
Mm.
is this, and we work through that, and he's really good at reassuring me. But I get annoyed at myself for still having those responses. I'm like, it pisses me off.
Yeah.
That the old Gina who had this innocent vulnerability, I was just so innocent and like not exposed to some of the darkness in the world.
Yeah.
I miss that version of me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's beautiful to have like be in touch with that intuition. And yeah, I am a different version of me, but I am so much stronger and I'm so much happier, and it's okay. Like some of the parts I miss are gone, but
Mm.
there are other parts that would never be there had I not been through that.
Totally. I love that. And I love the way that you talk to yourself with that as well.
Mm.
So to maintain that self-compassion, because obviously you've had to do that a lot through coming through what you've gone through, but also just with how you live your daily life and also just getting a PhD as well.
Yeah.
Like even that is ginormous in terms of what you can bite off. Like with self-compassion and having that, is there certain things that you tell yourself that can be helpful to other people to know, or is certain habits that you have to maintain that level of self-compassion?
I think the more I talk to people about behavior and the things that they want to change in their life, the more I realize how similar we all are, and
Yeah.
that we all share such a real human experience. And, I've run this particular survey with thousands of Australians from all walks of life, and they all report the same unwanted habits, everybody.
Mm.
And so I come back to that of, I will always strive for perfection. It's in my nature to do that. But I'm doing okay. I think that's what I constantly say to myself, Gina, you're doing okay. It's
Mm.
okay. If you need to like be on the couch and watch Farmer Wants a Wife all day, that's okay, because yesterday you freaking killed it. So it's okay. And I think bouncing it off other people has been really helpful for me as well. Like my best friends or my husband to say, like, I'm getting these thoughts. And sometimes it's really validating to, hear what someone else thinks. And sometimes they slap me across the face, verbally, and they're like, are you kidding? Like, do you realize how much you got done this week? Like, chill
Yeah.
out. It's all right.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, those conversations are really helpful for me.
Yeah, I love that. So with everyone wanting to, improve and be the best version of themselves, you have a free habits course going on. How else can people work with you, and how are you engaging with people to share this now?
So I've written a book called The Habit Revolution. It's available on paperback, Audible, and Kindle. So grab that. It's got so much of the juicy like how-tos. It's a real like guide. It hand holds you through it. I also run, yeah, habit change courses. I've got two different courses. There's one for everyday people wanting to understand a bit more about their own habits and really make meaningful changes. I've also got a course called the Habit Practitioner course, which is for anyone who's already a coach or a manager who's or works with other people and they're interested in becoming a certified habit coach. So that is also available online. And
Nice.
then
I'll
I know
link to
I
all of
bagged
those
out.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know I bagged out social media before, but jump on my Instagram. I am on there. I was just having a lull week.
Oh, thing is, I think everybody has not a love-hate relationship with it, but it's such a beautiful way to connect with people. I have made great friends that I met on Instagram, which I would never have thought that that was possible, but like real life quality friends and keep connected with everyone. But it's also can get real weird on there. And then, it's very
Mm.
salesy and can be manipulative and it's filled with grossness and all the darkness
Mm.
of the world that it's very, yeah, I have very mixed feelings about social media
Yeah.
also. I get it. I think everybody does. Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. And I think as well from a habit perspective, because it is the number one reported unwanted habit, sometimes I feel that I'm feeding the problem. And
Mm,
I'm not, because if I wasn't on there, they'd still be scrolling. It's not like they're on there for me.
yeah.
But I still can't get behind the idea sometimes that like I'm contributing to this. I'm
Yeah.
trying,
Yeah, I
I
get that.
want engagement. I want people to watch my full video. I want, they're watching my stories, but I'm now contributing to the thing they're telling me they want to do less of.
Yeah, yeah,
So is
yeah.
that plays around in my head as
Yeah,
well, is
you could
it?
just have like in your 15 minutes of allocated time today, make sure I am 1 minute of those.
Yes. And that's it. Tina, I come back to the idea of scrolling's not the issue. Our phones are not the problem. It's too much of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
the problem. And, I can recalibrate my thoughts that way. But
Yeah.
there's a very long response to how people can get it
Yeah,
in touch
I
with
love it.
me.
I love the long responses. It's amazing. So I will link to all of the things and all of your things. You're amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. One question I will finish on is what is the one habit that you are not doing at the moment that is in your future that you want to put in? Do you have one?
Oh my gosh, these questions. Okay, one habit that I want to add to my future.
Or stop that is a negative one.
This is very personal, but I think for me, it's the moment I think someone might be criticizing me, I will hear that over all the wonderful things that people might be saying. Like, I think my book has a review of 4.9, and I was like, who is that person who gave me less than a 5?
Yes. Yes.
That is something I want to break because when I see other people doing that, I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like 4.9 is solid, but I don't necessarily adopt that either. So,
Mm.
and I teach at university and the same, like we get feedback from students and I'm winning teaching awards but I'm also focusing on the one piece of negative feedback that someone says.
Yeah.
And I know we carry a negative bias, our brains are wired to do that, but I really want to focus less on that. I want it to impact me less. I want to not notice it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is what I want to work on.
I 100% agree. I used to like guest coach in somebody's program, and out of all their coaches, I was the top ranked person that they had, always
Yeah.
got great ones. And then one day, this dude gave me like a 3 out of 10. And he said
Okay.
that he had a negative visceral response to my voice and my laugh. And anyway, this was years ago. And see, I can still tell you what he said,
Yeah.
like so
With
bad.
feelings.
I
Yeah.
can't tell you anything positive that anybody said. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
But so why do our brains do that? The negative bias.
I think it's a protective mechanism. I'm
Very
not
protective.
exactly
It's just
sure.
nasty.
Yeah, it's nasty. And I think even if our brains default to that, we should break it. I
Yeah,
don't
just
like
say
it.
no blocking. I've got a friend of mine who has no email now because she's quite high up in the online course industry. And so she gets
Mm,
a lot of fan mail and a lot of the opposite of that. She's like, I
yeah.
don't read either of it. I can't take the
Yeah,
fan or
no.
the negative. There's no positive or negative. I just do my thing and it's just
It's your
blinkers
thing.
on.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
go
You
girl.
should
And
do
I
that.
I love I love the idea of like closing out the noise because I think the more we close out the noise, the more we can just focus on doing what we do and
Yeah.
being really good at that and not worrying about go hard or go home or what
Mhm.
Sally next door's doing. It's like, who cares?
Just
Just
do
like,
us.
do you? Yeah, that's cool.
It's a great message to finish on. Gina, thank you so much for sharing with us. You're fabulous.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to chat with you.